Pongs, resident, farmer, business owner. We here in the Greenbelt of Riverside. The Greenbelt is, or was set aside by the citizens of Riverside as an agricultural preserve in the early 80s. Most of the citizens felt that the urban sprawl was taking away or challenging or affecting their lifestyle, so they voted in a 4,000 acre preserve, which we now call the Greenbelt. En-Gage Riverside's mission is to protect, preserve, and promote a sustainable agricultural community. There's a lot of users of the Greenbelt in different ways, from residential to agricultural preserve. And then we Greenbelt growers, ironically, we grow plants. We use it in an ornamental fashion, ornamental horticulture. We grow plants for landscape use. Primarily, you'd see our product parks, shopping centers, along the freeways, and most recently we're seeing a lot of demand for mitigation of urban runoff in what they called bioremediation ponds. So we grow a lot of grasses, sedges that are used for those applied, I guess, in that fashion. I became aware of policy changes overnight during the last recession, 2006, 7, 8. You know, we were losing money, we were bleeding money from everywhere. I mean, payroll, rent, you know, investments, rentals, everything was losing money upside down. And then our water bill on one piece of property went from $300 to $2,600 overnight, right? So that is, when your ship is already full of holes, when you're drowning, that much more debt is just enough to put you under. So it got my attention completely. So that's when I started to really look into what's happening, right? And so the next 5 or 6 years was survival mode. You know, I mean, literally, we weren't sure we could keep our employees. You know, we came to the point where I've told this story. I literally had $100 in my pocket, and I wasn't sure whether to buy groceries or gas. You know, and so, you know, that's the challenges most farmers face, you know. And so when you bring it back to what are we doing, at that time I just did a lot of research, put documents together, asked a lot of questions, built folders, and I went to see an attorney in the Bay Area with all my documents, you know, one of the best water attorneys around. And I laid them out, and they said, you know, wow, Carl, where'd you get all this? And I said, I've just been, you know, obsessing, if you would, about this. And they said, yeah, you've got a case. You probably, our advice to you is to run for the board at Gage Canal, get on the board, and that's probably where you can affect the most change. In talking to the neighbors who had similar frustrations to mine, the feedback I got was, well, there's nothing we can do. The city runs the board. You know, they run the elections. The canal does whatever they want. Even when talking to the manager, he just threw up his arms, said, hey, you know, I do what they tell me. And
were they in their rights to do so, or were they overstepping?
You know, I feel they're overstepping.
Yeah.
They might feel that they're in their rights. You know, I'm representing this side of the table, but we weren't at the table at all. You know?
And so now we are. Now we're at the table.
Yeah, now we're at the table. So we had a community meeting at the Citrus Park. Honestly, the outpouring of support was amazing. I think we had over 100 people there. I kind of laid out what I thought and what my frustrations were.
Was it encouraging to like see other people who had the same feelings?
Oh my gosh, yes. And I think, you know, there was people from all sides of this story were there. I saw a lot of texts going back and forth. Probably some good, some not so good. But from that, we had an election, and we had so many people show up that we were concerned the fire department might shut down our election at the Little Water Mutual. I think we had 140 people there, you know, and that was, I think that was a turning point, you know. That's really showed interest in what's happening. And you know, people know you gotta, without water. I started En-Gage, or En-Gage is probably a result, if you would, of a desire to challenge or push back on some of these policies, or at least be at the table when these policies are driven. Sometimes when I talk to friends or neighbors, they'd say, hey, you know, what are you trying to do? You know, what is your goal? And so we thought about it, and we thought, man, we need a platform. We need a place where our community, right? I mean, there's plenty of agricultural communities, but the one specific to here could communicate, really kind of reconcile what it is that those interests are. You know, what matters to us. I mean, I can tell you what I need as a business owner. I can tell you what my family wants in the community, but you know, I'm just one resident. When did I come to the Greenbelt? It was around 1990, I think. When my wife and I were married, she wanted to get married at the Mission Inn. And so that was really my first in-depth interaction with the city of Riverside, and I loved the history and got to know it a little better. Then we also happened to be renting land in the Greenbelt, but I would just come in and out, you know, and I would just go to work and leave. But in that, I drove around the Greenbelt doing business with other nurseries. And so when we decided to move, there's a few things that mattered to us. Was, you know, quality of life, short commute, part of that. So we decided we were going to build a home in the Greenbelt, but decided to purchase a home. And so really got to like it at that time. So that would have been around 1990. Why did we stay? Or why do we still stay? That's a really big question. But in the short term, you know, our kids were going to school here. We had friends, family. You know, we belonged, or we were making a belonging.
So there was a strong sense of community that you wanted to continue with.
Yeah, a strong sense of community. It was easy from a business standpoint. The business environment was good for nurseries and, you know, any agriculture. So yeah, that's why we came, and that's why we stayed. The Gage Canal it's an amazing water agency that's really there to support agriculture, you know, and what I think is particularly unique is that it supports here things like nursery, citrus, avocado, but most recently we're getting mushrooms, rabbits, horses. You know, the diversity is great. You know, a few things have changed. The labor force is obviously, for every industry, the labor's coming down, so that's not specific to us, but does affect us. The water challenge is ever increasing, and so we hear about shortages of water. With that comes costs. When you have a shortage of a commodity, the cost goes up, the competition goes up. And so, you know, in California, the pressure or the competition is development, meaning housing, commercial, and agriculture. And so I see the Greenbelt here in Riverside as almost a canary in a coal mine on this issue, because the urban ag interface is so extreme, I guess. The community wants the quality of life of the ag interface. The policy is driven to support development. You know, the development pays the bills. Property taxes, development fees, school fees, every house that's built goes right to the bottom line at the city. So it's complicated. So that we're feeling that. We're feeling that here. You know, every dollar a gallon of water goes up, you have to make that up somewhere. En-Gage is, in my opinion, a canary in the coal mine in kind of this micro area where the urban ag interface exists, particularly in Riverside, because, you know, it's 1,500 citizens out of 300,000, right? So we certainly are a minority. And the 300,000 citizens have 6 council members that are looking out for their interests. We have 1. When I bought land in the Greenbelt, we had some references to water. When the water bill went through the roof, I dug into more what those rights were. And I realized that we do have water rights that were not made readily available at the time we bought the land. Not everybody knows that that the land in the Greenbelt has water rights, and that they need to ask for them. And then they need to put them to use. Any organization has to have policy, and it has to have PR, if you would, support what it is that they're doing. But I think that without a bit of a strong arm, your voice may not be heard, or it could be overruled. Again, I'm going to really kind of direct this. The building industry is our direct challenger for the water rights, and so everybody has to live in a home. We all drive cars, we all go to shopping centers. Those are really vital to our society, but so is food, and so are plants, so is our environment. And every one of those industries has very powerful representation, both legally and politically. And if we don't have comparable representation, I'm not going to say we won't win, but we definitely will lose. The issues that matter to us, water, land, labor, matters to all farmers. And so I like to think that our efforts will by default help other farmers on those very basic levels. So for me, my part, as I see my part in this En-Gage platform, is to fight for water rights, land use, labor law, that's somebody else. Land and water are really the vital two, right? So when you talk about finding that vital few, land and water, and that goes across all boards. Every farmer needs that. And without it, they're done. So En-Gage is specific, at least right now, as a platform for our community. But I see it being applicable. Right now we call it En-Gage Riverside. There's no reason you couldn't call it En-Gage Bakersfield or En-Gage, whatever, fill in the blank. So, I would love for, I might be getting ahead of myself here, but I would love for this to be a template to be used elsewhere. This Greenbelt is unique in that there's residents here that, lawyers, doctors, school teachers, they make a good living elsewhere, and they live here for their quality of life. That benefits the whole city because we have this open space, which is really a giant park. We get, the Citrus Heritage Run. We have the Citrus Park. We have
bicyclists use this as training ground. Horses go up and down the street. Resource for CBU cross country team.
It really is. So, I talked about uniqueness of Riverside, and I think it is unique in that interface of uses that kind of revolve around agriculture, but it's really quality of life. If farming is important to you, if maintaining your 5-acre parcel of property is important to you, even if it's just a residence.
If keeping these views is important to you.
If keeping these views is important to you, food is important to you.
Yes. Those green space,
quality
air,
of life.
Yeah.
But it's naive to think that others will protect their rights and their interests. And I don't mean that I don't know if that sounds right, but
they need to take an active engagement in protecting their interests and protecting their quality of life.
Yeah, and so they do that by following the council agenda, following policy, and not just the council agenda. It's all the committees, land use committees, all the policy that is coming up. Particularly now, we're seeing some policies made by the state that will impact our density. It will impact housing policy. En-Gage is in its infancy. It just set up within the many people that have come forward to our community meetings and our elections. We have people with their representatives from all walks of life. Finance, certainly farmers, many of different types, but planning, people with planning experience, people with policy experience, people with PR experience. You know, those things, I'll be honest, I'm not good at. You know, I talk about, you know, my part is to push for protecting the water rights and the land rights, but really we could use help in the structure, you know, and the financial help will come later. It's the support part that is critical.
Logging in, viewing, spreading the word.
Following the city agendas, following the policy, interpreting them, you know, that's a skill in and of itself. And then, of course, helping to boil down the vital issues that we can focus our resources towards. People can help by going to our website, logging in, registering if they choose. Then we will have links there or information on upcoming council meetings. And then, you know, please feedback too. If you see something that we need to be addressing, let us know. You know, there's so many issues. You know, I feel we should focus, you know, to a few issues that really are the underlying support for agriculture. But, you know, all these issues matter. They all are relevant. And sometimes I like to say what gets you is what you don't know that you don't know, you know, and those are the things you really should maybe at least be aware of.
Yeah.
I could use advice anytime. We've bitten off probably, I'm not going to say more than we can chew, but we've certainly bitten off a lot.
Yeah.
And we could use some help chewing.
I love
it.